Yeah, let's do it. Welcome back.
We're glad to see that you're sticking around with us.
As we mentioned before, we're going to be giving you all sorts of tips and tricks to help you maintain a healthy microbiome.
If you didn't get the chance to watch our introductory video, be sure to go check that out, because everything we talked about is foundational to what we'll be discussing in this video.
For sure. But to summarize briefly, your microbiome is the collection of microorganisms living inside you. We're talking bacteria, protists, fungi.
What a fun time! And when we say bacteria living inside of you, we aren't just referring to that one bacterial cell that gave you strep a while ago. At a minimum, 50% of the cells in your body are not human. They're microbial.
Just as each human has a unique set of fingerprints, every human has a unique microbial profile. Every human body is a unique habitat for trillions of tiny life forms.
And we get these life forms from our environments, from what we eat to if we have a pet or not.
But there's also evidence that suggests that the possession of microbes is innate to humans. We have many bacterial genes in our human genome,
and we've acquired a certain dependency upon microbes for survival. For example, our digestive processes absolutely necessitate nutrient-absorbing bacteria in the large intestine.
Which means that if the bacteria in your body are disrupted, there can be major implications for your health and well-being.
So today, we're going to be talking about one area that we can all focus on to improve our microbial health, our diets.
Now, don't scooch that bowl of ice cream away quite yet. We're not here to talk about the way we look. For bacteria, it really is the inside that counts.
Instead, let's take a look at the kinds of nutrients we're giving to our microbes. Let us help you to help them to help you.
Close enough. Bacteria in the gut are the ones doing most of the digestion for you in your large intestine. They absorb nutrients from the food that your body could not otherwise break down, absorbing some for themselves and then passing the rest along to the human for absorption.
In most bacterial samples taken from human digestive tracts, there are two phyla that are particularly dominant, Firmicutes and Bacteroides.
Dr. Ruth Ley, founder of the Ley Lab and the Max Planck Institute for Developmental Biology, wanted to look for a connection between the prevalence of these two bacterial phyla and obesity. She found that in people with healthy weights, Bacteroides were usually the most abundant bacterial group. People diagnosed with obesity had many more Firmicutes.
But was it the difference in bacterial composition causing the obesity? Or did the obesity cause a shift in microbial composition?
Peter Turnbull, founder of the Turnbull Lab at the University of California, San Francisco, looked into this relationship using an experiment involving germ-free mice. Mice characterized as being devoid of microbes because they are born by cesarean section and raised under sterile conditions.
Turnbull transferred the gut bacteria of obese mice to germ-free mice, feeding both the control germ-free mice and the contaminated germ-free mice the same amount of food.
14 days later, the contaminated germ-free mice gained weight, but the control germ-free mice didn't gain any weight at all.
And those results show us that weight gain isn't necessarily all about what we eat or how much. It can also be attributed to the kinds of bacteria we have in our guts.
Of course, how much we eat is a contributing factor. We can't completely disregard that.
But certain kinds of bacteria may extract more from the foods that we eat. Firmicutes, the bacteria most prevalent in obese people, extract about 2% more calories from our food than Bacteroides do. So someone with more Bacteroides will extract about 1,000 calories from a double Whopper with cheese. But someone with more Firmicutes will extract about 20 more calories from the same burger.
It adds up over time. If we're going off of a standard 2,000 calorie diet, a woman of average height and weight with a healthy body mass index who has an obese microbial composition will extract an additional 40 calories a day. This translates to a 4-pound weight gain over the course of a year, and in 10 years, that's about 40 pounds of weight gain. Suddenly, her BMI, assuming her height doesn't change, falls into the obese category.
Remember, we acquire most of our microbes from the environment around us. So what are we doing that controls for the kinds of bacteria we harbor inside of us?
A lot of it comes down to the kinds of food we eat. Each bacterial species is equipped for the digestion of specific molecules. One is better at digesting proteins and meat, and one is better at digesting sugar molecules found in plant cells.
And if a certain kind of molecule isn't present in a person's diet, then the bacteria needed to digest that molecule won't be as prevalent. They can't extract the nutrients that they need to survive, much less do anything for you.
So, why might the prevalence of obesity be increasing at such an alarming rate? Well, our diets have changed substantially. We are eating foods that contain far more fat and sugars than our ancestors ate.
In fact, we don't even have to go as far as our ancestors who lived many centuries ago. Our grandparents were eating different foods than us. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that processed foods and fast foods really hit the market.
It makes sense that the population has recently gained weight given the increase in general caloric intake or fat consumption and sugar consumption. But we also have to recall what we just said about our gut bacteria.
Fats and sugars are relatively energy-rich. Why would bacteria need to scrape the bottom of the barrel, extracting all the energy they can from fats and sugars that we eat when there's an abundance of energy?
Maybe the imbalance in our Firmicutes and Bacteroides levels isn't due to the things that we've started eating. Maybe it's due to the things that we've stopped eating.
According to the UK's National Food Survey, fat and sugar consumption has actually decreased in the United Kingdom since World War II. Yet, obesity rates have increased.
In the United States Department of Agriculture found that between 1977 and 1987, caloric intake decreased from 1,854 calories a day to 1,785 calories a day. At the same time, fat intake fell from 41 to 37%. But the proportion of the population that was overweight rose from a quarter to a third of the population.
In a study that compared the diets of Italian kids who consume foods similar to those consumed in the United States and Burkina Faso children who have a largely unprocessed diet, there was an incredibly evident difference in the intake of a specific nutrient, fiber.
Children in Burkina Faso get over 3 times the proportion of fiber in their diets. Plus, they were dominated by the bacterial phylum Bacteroides, while children from Italy had more Firmicutes.
Right. The obesity rate is higher in Italy than it is in Burkina Faso, so naturally, Italian children will have more Firmicutes.
What might be surprising, though, is that most members of the Bacteroides phylum found in the guts of Burkina Faso children were of the genus Prevotella.
I was going to say Nutella.
Nutella!
You probably know Prevotella for its ability to cause severe respiratory infections. That's because the genus is essentially absent from our guts, as they are absent from the guts of the Italian children. But Prevotella also harbor genes coding for enzymes that break down cellulose, an indigestible compound in plant cell walls.
Cellulose is a wonderful example of the fiber that our bodies need. And it's true, we aren't eating as many plants as we used to. In 1942, Americans ate almost double the amount of plants that we do now. And in the 1940s, an adult in the UK consumed over 3 times the amount of fiber that Brits do now.
Given these statistics, it's easy to see why most Americans have an unhealthy ratio of Firmicutes to Bacteroides. Plant-digesting Bacteroides cannot support themselves in our gut without a steady supply of fiber.
But it's not too late to reverse this trend. It was found that in mice who had a high-fat diet supplemented with fiber, the speed of weight gain was reduced and their cholesterol levels were lower. It was also found that Bacteroides levels in these mice became like those of the lean mice.
Another study saw the same, almost instantaneous change in humans. When you give Americans a plant-based diet, their microbes see a rapid increase in bacterial groups that break down plant cell walls.
In fact, women who increased their fiber consumption by 8 grams per 1,000 calories lost 4.5 pounds over 20 months.
And it's critical to make the change, even if you don't fall into an obese BMI right now. In Alana Collins' 10% Human, it was shown that if a person's spouse became obese, that person's risk of becoming obese themselves increases by 37%.
What's more is that if a person's friend became obese, that person's risk of following suit shot up by 171%.
But why is that?
Well, we tend to eat with the people we are around, so our diets are similar to those that are closest to us.
But additionally, we are constantly communicating with one another microbially. It is estimated that you expel around 37 million bacteria into the air every hour.
And those bacteria are interacting with the microbiomes of the people around you. So when a bacterial imbalance is occurring in a friend or a spouse, it may be seeping into your system, for lack of a better description.
Of course, this isn't enough to produce immediate effects, but it could be a potential catalyst, which is why all of us need to better our diets.
But there's another way that a microbial imbalance can be created in our bodies, and This time, it actually does have to do with the things that we're putting into our bodies.
Antibiotics are designed to kill pathogenic bacterial cells, but many antibiotics are broad spectrum, meaning they kill a range of species.
When we take antibiotics, we are wiping out many of the colonists of our guts. In a study described by Dr. Martin Blacher, the director of the Human Microbiome Project at New York University, it was found that children who received antibiotics earlier in life typically weighed more later on.
We aren't saying stop taking antibiotics. Check out our medical practices video to hear more on that. But we are saying that we can avoid taking them in excess.
Many industrial agricultural practices use antibiotics to increase yield.
Surprise! Livestock animals are typically given antibiotics to increase their size. Wouldn't it make sense that this principle applies to humans as well?
We can make a more conscious effort to avoid putting meats that contain antibiotics into our bodies.
And perhaps this will lead to a change in the way industrial agriculture is practiced in the future.
And antibiotics aren't the only substances that are thought to do damage to the human gut microbiome. Artificial sweeteners are thought to increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, glucose intolerance, and lead to more caloric extraction from bacteria in the colon.
There is actually quite an expansive collection of literature regarding diet and bacteria out there, but we'll highlight a few key recommendations for you.
Eat more fiber. We've seen the impact that this can have, and we know that it's a fairly achievable goal for everyone.
Be conscious of the chemicals being used to produce the food that you eat. A lot of times they're used with the intention to increase size.
Consume things that contain probiotics, like yogurt, to enhance the health of your bacterial communities.
And of course, we can't disregard the efforts to reduce the intake of fats and sugars.
By 2030, 86% of the US population is predicted to be overweight or obese. By 2048, everyone will be.
Let's make an effort to combat this trend. But wasn't the
Bacterial.
bacterial?
Oh,
Okay, I'm double Y. I'm so sorry.
You're good.